first video in this series introduced the concept of my hybrid grow box. It's a self-controlling box in which a growing environment is maintained, makes use of the sun and a bunch of other things. Click the link to see that video. This video is about the physical construction of that box. The frame is made from 1 by 2 inch timber, painted white. The sides are made from 6mm ply, which is roof lining for the shed. You can see some gusset plates have been added for rigidity. The front of the box is covered in something called Corotherm, which is a 2-layer laminated like a polycarbonate sheet. It's quite thin and quite inexpensive. This is a hybrid box, meaning it uses the sun as well as LEDs to light the internal environment, so of course the front needs to be transparent. I tested the thermal characteristics of the box by putting a heater inside with a thermometer and shutting the door, and was depressed to find that it was pretty dreadful. It was really hard to maintain a temperature of more than just a few degrees centigrade above ambient. So I used one of these laser infrared thermometers to see where the heat was being lost. Unfortunately, it was being lost pretty much from every surface equally. So I coated all of the inside surfaces with emergency blanket, which is a mylar material coated with highly reflective metal, I believe. That made things quite a lot better, but I was hoping for better than that. So I also coated the inside, the sides and the roof and the floor with polystyrene covered in more of this emergency blanket material. That really did make a difference, and now by far the worst source of heat loss was through the front window. Now when the front window has got sun being rammed through it, one would expect that the sun contributes more heat than is lost through it outwards. And when the sun isn't doing that, we want to close the blind at the front, so we should be okay. So let's talk a bit about that blind now. It's made of a double layer of that emergency blanket stuff. It's draped over a powered roller system which allows the blind to be raised and lowered under computer control. Bits of metal like this are available from PCs, laptops, printers and stuff like that, and they're useful. You know, they can be nice and shiny, they can be fairly sturdy. So they're a source of raw materials. This is part of a case from a DVD drive, for example. This is just, I think, a cover for radio frequency protection. You can make things like this, which is not great because I don't have any tools here, but this, what this is for, is to allow me to mount this motor. Not easy to do with one hand, can't be bothered to set the tripod up. To mount this motor on top of the grow box. This is the support at the other end of a bar which will hold the blind. It's half of an internal DVD case. You can see the tube is a loose fit through the hole and sits on the motor at the other end. That's how that's going to work. So here's the blind in operation. It's not very fast, but it's good enough. This is the lower limit switch, and the problem is that that lever is too small, and the bar which comes down can either miss it or slide off it or settle in such a way that it doesn't trigger it. So what I'm going to do is add this piece of metal, which I again got from scrap computer parts, and I'll stick it just here, making a much bigger paddle of a target. I'll do that with epoxy resin, and I'll just use this piece of paper to make sure that I don't get the resin where I don't want it. And here it is. You can see it's a much bigger target to hit, and it's not easily fallen off of. So job done. After that I did 3 mods. The first one is to replace this bar that you see on the bottom of the blind, which is actually a bamboo pole, with some tubular metal. The second thing I did is replace the blind with a double blind which wrapped around that tube. That gives you 2 layers, which means more light is reflected back into the box, and of course there's a layer of air trapped, which means improved insulation. The last thing I did was to add some beefy strips of foam board down here, which would prevent this bottom bar from jumping out of the guide, making a more light tight and a secure arrangement. The blind has given fault-free performance since then. Well, that completes the basic construction of the box with the blind at the front. That forms the core of the system, and I think we'll leave it there today. Next time we'll look at the sensors and some other features of the box. So I hope you enjoyed that. If you're interested in what comes next, then, and you haven't already, then do subscribe. Please feel free to rate, make comments or questions. I'm very happy to answer those. Other than that, thanks for watching.